Another week, another mock draft.
Let's just start the show.
And welcome back to the Standard Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jono.
And I'm your host, Chris, and we're back at it again with another mock draft. We're getting into that season, boys.
Oh, yeah.
And girls.
We are throwing at you every which way that we can find out, and different combinations, different draft styles. One thing we are doing and been consistent with is we are going with standard scoring, obviously, Standard Fantasy Football Podcast. We are not opposed to, and during our mockathon, we'll probably throw in a half-point or a full-point PPR draft here and there just because some people want to know, and we want to get everybody out here. But for the most part, we want to give you the advice or the look through the eyeglass here to see what you could do at these different draft positions.
The looking glass.
So I will be drafting from the 5 spot. Chris will be drafting from the 8 spot.
Yeah, let's get to it.
All right. That being said, let's start her up. Draft begins.
Hey, cheers.
Oh, yeah, cheers. Little feist beer, little fest beer.
It's a feist beer, yeah. All right, so we got Jamar Chase first overall, Bijan Robinson number 2, Christian McCaffrey number 3, and Tyreek Hill at number 4. Jono, you got your pick of the litter on those top-end wide receivers. Who are you going with?
I know. This is tough. I was not expecting there to be CD and Jefferson here. I think I would be mistaken to not go back to the CD-Dak connection. The same thing as Jefferson has. His whole career has gotten better every single year. CD Lamb has gone that route too as well. The only thing that does kind of change my thought process is the amount they threw in the red zone last year in comparison to years prior with Zeke in the red zone. I see them with Zeke back there being more of that rushing first red zone opportunity, which could take the touchdowns away.
Yeah, it could, but, I mean, you're going to get volume there. I mean, you can make the same argument for what we've made with Devontae Adams to CeeDee Lamb. The big thing for me with CeeDee Lamb, and the reason why I might avoid him more so than other guys and the top-end receivers is I'm not confident in that offensive line. And are they going to be able to protect Dak? And if anything happened to Dak, I don't know if the value of CD is there. Now,
True.
I'm not shying away. Like, he's a top 5 receiver. I mean, top 3 receiver.
Yeah.
But, like, a lot of me is, like, hoping not to be in a position to be able to draft him. I like other people there.
Yeah. Personally, I like Justin Jefferson more.
I do.
So, but I'm going to go with CD here. I'm hoping that we have a return in investment similar to last year. St. Brown goes, then Jefferson, but before you. So you're kind of in that situation where top 2 running backs, in my opinion, with McCaffrey, Bijan, you can argue Breece Hall is right up there too, are gone. And those other 5 top receivers are gone as well.
Yep. You know, I haven't done a lot of this, and I'm going to do it here. I'm going to go A.J. Brown. Like, I haven't gotten a lot of him. I've really fluctuated towards getting, like, Breece Hall in that position, who was the other guy I was going to get. But I'm going to probably push with a 0 running back strategy here. Now,
even with Saquon sitting right there for you in the second round?
I'm not a Giants fan, and I'm not as high on Saquon as you are. I'm not. And I'm not going to go and draft
So
him
you're
in the
saying
second
he's
round.
not a second round?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying he's not a second round pick. He's a second round pick.
Yeah. And that.
Do I want him? No.
Okay. So anyway, 4 running backs go, 4 receivers go after you. You're sitting there with Saquon, London, ETN, Josh Allen, first quarterback there, and Olave.
Yeah, going this 0 running back, I'm going to go and take the best quarterback on the board. I'm going to take Josh Allen here.
And if I was going 0 running back, that's probably what I do because I value him more than those receivers like Drake London and Olave.
Yeah, I would have liked to see Devontae Adams or Marvin Harrison fall to me, and they didn't. I'm not super high on London, and I'm not super high on Chris Olave, not to value them over Josh Allen.
So if Saquon fell to me, that would have been my pick here.
Of course it would.
But, I mean, it's at the 2-8. Why wouldn't you? But there's another person here that, to me, is on the same level as Saquon, that these guys are going second round that should be able to finish as a first-round finisher, it could be a top 5 of their position, and that's a King Henry. Why he's being faded so much for the likes of Jahmyr Gibbs, who's really splitting a backfield there, in a really run-heavy offense. Now, I get it. We're talking about a different type of offense, and he's a different team in age.
You like Derrick Henry over Travis Etienne?
I do. I like the schedule better. I like the opportunities in the red zone better.
Okay.
So That's where I'm going to go with this one. I've been fading
Olave,
Etienne a little bit more.
Ayuk, ECN, Laporta, Achane, Jacobs, Evans, Pacheco, and back to you.
Right here is where I would teeter on going tight end or quarterback because only one of each have been off the board. There's going to be a lot more off the board before it gets back to me. So I got to decide: do I want Travis Kelce at the lowest we could get him in years, or do I want to go with the second best rushing quarterback off the board, being Jalen Hurts? I'm going to probably stick on the quarterback side of it because I feel like the value at tight end, I can get somebody with Kelce's caliber, like a Kittle, like a Ingram, a little bit later on. So I'm going to go with the quarterback like you did here as well. My biggest debate would have been Collins or Debo.
Yeah.
Because I really like Debo and I really like Collins, and I would supplant those two there. You know what? I'm gonna shift. I'm gonna go Debo. I talked myself into it.
You talked yourself into it.
I'm gonna go Debo.
Look at you.
I'm gonna go Debo here.
Kels, Hurts.
Which the two other options I was thinking of.
Great.
But I lock in that top tier receiver in my opinion.
Yeah, and you know what? I like where that fell because I was thinking Debo is probably going to fall to me because if you're going to go Hurts, Kels, Debo, Nico, we're going to go. Nico Collins fell to me for a third round receiver. I absolutely love him there, so I'm going to go ahead and smash that pick.
I even think even Nico went and Hurts was the one that fell to you there. You already had your quarterback. Jalen Waddle was sitting right there. And
I like Nico Collins better than Jalen.
Oh, 100%, I do too. But I'm just saying, I think a lot of people are looking at last year in a bubble.
Yeah, no, for sure. And this is what I absolutely love.
Look at the
just
quarterback
happened.
run.
A little quarterback run for sure, but this is what I absolutely love just happened. You know, I was actually gonna hope that Malik Neighbors fell down to me. 3 more picks. Mm-hmm. But Michael Pittman sitting there, DK sitting there. I'm gonna go ahead and get myself Michael Pittman, and he's probably my favorite fourth round receiver. If I see him in the fourth round, every time I'm hitting the smash button.
Trey McBride, DK Metcalf go. I probably would have swung at Metcalf right here. He's probably one of the safer picks in terms of his value. He doesn't have the ceiling that some of these receivers have, but his floor every year it really doesn't move.
No.
So he doesn't have these big outliers. Like he has a couple games that may sit there, but he doesn't have a super low floor. So now I'm sitting there with 2 wide receivers and a running back. Mark Andrews is still available here. 3 teams ahead of me still don't have their tight end. I'm going to flirt with that a little bit because Kincaid is still there too. So my goal would be to get a tight end at the next round. So that being said, I got to decide best on board. Do I think James Cook, Devonta Smith, Joe Mixon, which one is going to be the better of the options? Preferably, I'm probably going to end up leaning James Cook. I think this offense without a tier 1, number 1 receiver there may look a little bit different. Josh Allen may be pumping it off to the side to Cook. Cook may get more carries. So I'm going to bet on the Bills and the talent versus a number 2 receiver, Devonta Smith, who I still think is very good, or Joe Mixon, a little bit older, in an offense, too, that is pass-heavy as well.
Sure.
So that lines up my 2 and 2.
Zay Flowers, Devonta Smith, Joe Mixon, C.J. Stroud, Kenneth Walker, Amari Cooper, Mark Andrews, Anthony Richardson, and back to you.
And here we go. So sitting here, I've got Dalton Kincaid, ADP right here for me, and that's probably the route I'm going to go. I'm happy with my 2 receivers. I'm happy with my 2 running backs. I want to solidify one of those top guys. In fact, this would be the 5th guy off the board being a top 5 guy. Now, I am in love with Kittle in being some guy who could finish in the top 5 every single year.
For sure.
A little more oft injured, but has the opportunity to do it every single year. Yes, he's getting up there in age, but nobody plays football like him.
And thinking about it recently, Kamara goes, Aaron Jones goes, and back to me. Now, obviously, I went 0 running back, through the first 4 picks. And for the 0 running back strategy, I definitely want to get this guy locked up on my team. And that's James Conner.
I was going to say Mr. 0 running back himself.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a nickname anybody else has given him, but that's literally who I attribute to 0 running back methods.
It's a super consistent there.
Run on receivers. Pitts to start the 6th round with Pickens, Montgomery, and Joe Burrow. Right back to Chris here. Chris with 3 wide receivers, 1 quarterback, and 1 running back.
So it's happened to me twice already in this draft. This is the second time it's happened. Where my favorite guy is the top ADP, and then it just drops to me around, in the round that I want to get him. So I'm going to grab Kittle here. Go and grab my tight end, my quarterback.
Oh, there
3
goes
wide
Dak.
receivers.
Oh, there goes Dak. That stings. Okay. Well, now I'm in a pickle here because I want to get a decent quarterback, but I'm also sitting there staring down the barrel at Ramondre Stevenson.
Yeah.
Who gives me my flex position with a solid volume at running back, and volume is key for running backs, and touchdowns are key for running backs. I don't know how many touchdowns he's going to get with that offense, but you got to like the volume he's going to get. But I also don't want to bet on these quarterbacks after Kyler Murray. So sitting there knowing that Richardson and Stroud are both on 2 of the teams that are ahead of me, it still leaves 2 other teams looking for a quarterback, and I don't want to risk it here. So I'm going to go with my quarterback here because I still can get value at the other positions. I just don't feel like I can get a top 7 quarterback later on in this draft.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there goes Reed. There goes McLaurin, Swift, Stevenson, Najee, Pollard, and Addison. Ingram right there too as well. That stings. I mean, Swift, Stevenson, Najee, those were the 3 that I'd be happy if any of them swung back to me. With that being said, I now get into the position where I'd rather go with receiver at this point.
Yeah.
And I really, really like the mix of Calvin Ridley or Hollywood Brown here, or even Rashee Rice getting a piece of that offense. I'm not so locked and loaded on Godwin. A lot has to go right for him to have a season where he finishes above Calvin Ridley. If you look at the Tampa Bay Bucks, they had a surge of a season. Like, that's hard for them to repeat, in my opinion, with Baker Mayfield at the helm and that offense. I think that's going to be a more difficult team, a harder division this year for them, with some of those teams, except for Carolina, beasting up their offenses, our defenses. But I'm going to go here with Calvin Ridley. I think he's the top on my board in terms of the receivers that are available ADP right here, especially with the injury, knee injury that we just saw for D-Hop.
Yep.
Even though he should be good, that's still 4 to 6 plus weeks. That gives Ridley a leg up in terms of his time with Will Levis, as well as maybe even start the season without Hopkins.
So after you, Xavier Worthy, Jonathan Brooks goes. So Chris Godwin's the top on the board, but there's 2 running backs right after that I really like. I like Zamir White and like Raheem Mostert, but because I went with the 0 running back, because I just have James Conner, I'm going to go volume here. If I was drafting Raheem Mostert as my 3rd running back, I'd feel a lot more comfortable doing that. Higher ceiling on a guy, but I'm going to have to start every week. And not that I don't love Raheem Mostert, but Zamir White gives me that upside of just being able to have a guy that's going to get 15 to 20 touches per game.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get Zamir White here.
Godwin, Hollywood, Mostert, Deontay Johnson, Nick Chubb, Rashee Rice, Njoku, D-Hop go all afterwards. So look, there goes the drop in ADP with D-Hop and Ridley there. They've been a lot well, they're still pretty close, but they've been a lot closer and earlier. All right, sitting here, you've got your tight end, you've got your quarterback, you've got your slew of wide receivers, 2 running backs. So you filled out your starting lineup here.
Yeah, my starting lineup is full, and I still want to get some volume here with these mid-tier running backs. There's a couple guys here that I like, but Zach Moss, again, I'm getting a starter on a high-powered offense. And just like, Zamir White, Zach Moss gives a lot of great upside with a really good floor. So I feel and it's a good offense.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to score. I know Chase Brown's taking a lot of touches, but Chase Brown's not going to be an every down workhorse. Zach Moss is going to be.
Chase Brown's going to get his, but I think Zach Moss is the safer bet of the 2 of those.
There's other guys here that I really want to get.
Oh, there goes McConkey.
And
goes.
Javonte goes.
Those are the 2 that I was looking to go get there. All right, so that kind of puts me in a position. Do I want to go with Jaylen Warren here as my RB3, a guy who's going to split with Najee? I don't think he's, again, just like Chase Brown, not going to get featured as the main guy there. He's going to get his touches. He's going to split there. do I value that more than the could be wide receiver one in Buffalo? And to me, I've already done it earlier with Cook and Kincaid. I would do Coleman here if I didn't have Cook and Kincaid. I don't want to have three people locked into Buffalo.
Yeah.
Because then I'm locked into them week after week on how they're going to do. Brian Thomas Jr. is somebody that I'm really interested in here as well. But in terms of running back, this is where I'm going to try and get somebody before they do it. And I think I'm going to go with the volume guy in Devin Singletary. I want to give myself a guy. If anything happened to Cook, I have a guy who's just going to get at least the opportunities. He may not have a high ceiling, but he's got a higher floor based on volume. Volume's key at running back here. So Singletary goes, Eckler, Jordan Love, Brock Bowers, Christian Watson, Jalen Warren, Brian Thomas Jr., Smith and Jigba, Ferguson, and back to me here. Gosh, I'm just going to hammer the running back position here. I'm going to go get Brian Robinson Jr., another volume guy here too as well. I'm happy with Ridley, Debo, and CeeDee Lamb as the top three there. And I don't think I'm going to find a running back quite like Brian Robinson in terms of opportunities.
Sure.
I think he's the last guy on, literally probably the last guy on the board, besides maybe Gus Edwards, if he is the guy there.
Yeah, and this really, it fell down kind of perfectly to me because the fourth wide receiver that I want to get, I want to pair him up with my quarterback, is Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
And as opposed to you, where you have Cook and Kincaid and you're investing in that offense, I want to invest in that offense. I want the main red zone target, big body guy that's going to come in and replace a lot of those vacated targets from both Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs. So I'm going to go Keon Coleman here. And I'm really happy, like with my wide receiver core there. Keon Coleman.
Man, look at that run on.
Yeah, run on QBs there, which is awesome because now I have a lot of wide receivers and a lot of guys that came down to me here. Now there's a guy here that I really, really do like. And everyone should know at this point is Courtland Sutton.
Yep.
I'm gonna take the upside play, and I'm gonna do something that I've talked against doing for pretty much this entire offseason, and that's go Jameson Williams.
Part of me was hoping that JMO would drop to me here, but I'm happy to go take Courtland Sutton right off your hands too as well in this position. That gives me that fourth wide receiver here. What I wanted was Goff. I wanted to back up the off-injured Kyler Murray, the chance that my QB1 goes down again. I got a good backup that's going to give me week-to-week value, especially when he plays at home. But that didn't happen. Hawkinson went afterwards there, so it didn't hurt me too bad. But it leaves me with the wide receiver that I could fill out as my fourth guy off the board, and that's Courtland Sutton. Now, on the turn here, afterwards, I am going to look for that backup quarterback if we got an opportunity. I'm less concerned about a backup tight end here. Herbert with the injury to his foot would not have been my next choice, honestly. It scares me a little bit with an injury to the foot of the quarterback. He injured his finger, and just a finger itself on his non-throwing hand ruined the entire season for him afterwards there. So you saw Lockett go, Blake Corum, Curtis Samuel, Brown. Chase Brown would have been somebody I wouldn't think about here, and A.D. Mitchell. Jerome Ford is a solid pick here to start the season. It could also be season long here because he may even finish splitting with Nick Chubb. I mean, if they don't win games, I don't see them rushing Chubb back either way. Shakir, I like again. I don't want to invest in a third Buffalo player. And then I could take a chance on the rookie Leggett, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stick with what I wanted to do. And that leaves me with Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford. One of these three guys to me is a solid guy to back up that's going to give me week after week value and output. I'm going to go with my dad's favorite team. I can't help it. I think he's going to be fantastic. He's got two stud receivers that can finish both in the top 12, and that's Matt Stafford.
It's a solid pick, and you secure your backup. Now, you were talking about Shakir, obviously, being invested in Buffalo. I get Keon Coleman. But another player that I think is very similar to Shakir is still available, and I want to get a piece of him from a wide receiver standpoint. I know he just went back-to-back. I probably should get a running back here, but the value is there for Shaheed, and I want to take Shaheed here because I think the running back is going to swing back to me that I want to get.
Well, 2 tight ends go afterwards and Kirk Cousins. So you got J.K. Dobbins, Leggett, Jalen Wright,
Oh, he didn't get
Jacoby
taken right in
Myers,
front of me.
then Musgrave.
Good. So, I mean, again, this is 12th round we're choosing
Hubbard.
here, and Chuba Hubbard is sitting right there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and smash that because that is fantastic. And I love him as just like a change of pace guy. Again, Zach Moss, Zamir White, James Conner. I like having those 3 guys, especially with the upside at tight end, the upside at quarterback, the upside at the top end wide receivers that I was able to go and get. So I'm extremely happy there.
So here's something that I'm going to do, and it's more of a way, if your league lets you do this type of pick. Mike Williams is sitting on top of the ADP. This is the lowest Mike Williams has been in a long time, since rookie year, really, and even then I think he was probably higher. But Mike Williams in the 12th round, he starts on the PUP list. Our league allows you to do this. A lot of leagues do, that you can put somebody in PUP to start the season on your IR, and then first week of waiver wires hit, you can pick somebody else up, which is the method I would be doing here. Because it doesn't really hurt me that much in terms, if Mike Williams comes back with, and Aaron Rodgers is what it is, Mike Williams can be a stud receiver for the Jets down the stretch. He could end up being a flex receiver down the stretch for you because he was being drafted as a wide receiver 2 for people last year. And you can argue that Aaron Rodgers is better than Justin Herbert.
I don't need to make that argument.
But you see what I'm saying. So I'm going to take Mike Williams in the plan that I will put him on PUP and I will get somebody off waivers, best on board off waivers that I really like. And so I'm going to go Mike Williams here, value pick at a wide receiver with good upside. Kendra Miller, Josh Downs goes, another guy like Josh Palmer. I would have been more invested in had the injury to the foot for Herbert not been there. And plus we just don't know who's going to be number 1 yet there. Taysom Hill, Gabe Davis, who I do like a lot, Ty Chandler, and Baker Mayfield. And now I'm sitting here, I'm probably going to go with running back because I'm going to do that swap with Williams, the IR, and I'll find somebody with value also down here. I mean, Pearsall's probably going to go off the board, but I can go pick up Wicks, any of these guys that don't go in this last round. But I want to get a running back here that has upside on a good offense, that a running back that has proven himself for 1 season for sure. And that's going to be Marshawn Lloyd, the presumed backup to Jacobs.
To A.J. Dillon?
To A.J. Dillon. No, to Jacobs. So I'm going to go with the Packers. I want a piece of that Packers offense, and I want to do it on the ground.
Cool. And I'm going to go and finish up with another running back, my other favorite late-round running back, which is Tyler Algier. I thought that's who you're talking about. You're like, this guy had 1 good season, then they drafted someone. It's kind of very similar.
I didn't say they drafted somebody.
I'm just saying he had 1 good season.
It is similar.
Tyler Algier is going to get a workload this year. He's going to get more of a workload this year. I think that Bijan, I know Bijan in this draft went, number 2 overall. I know he's going to be drafted in the first round. Since he's been in the NFL last year and this year, I haven't done 1 draft where I've taken Bijan, and there's a reason for that.
I've taken Bijan 1 time.
It's not his talent. Again, we talked about this last year. It's not that I don't like him. It's not that I don't think he's talented, but he is in a split backfield, and as talented as he is, unless he's getting 250 to 300 touches, he's not going to have the possibility to end as a top 5 running back.
Well, no, I think he'll get 300 touches, but what he needs to do with 300 to get that versus these Breece Hall, Christian McCaffrey that are going to get over 300. Saquon Barkley is going to get more touches than him. I have a gut feeling.
Maybe
Derrick Henry should get more touches than him.
Yeah.
Overall, but again, even if all those guys are on the board, it's about not just the touches, it's the quality, it's the opportunity.
And I don't think he should be getting drafted in front of
now that
Jonathan Taylor.
I do think the offensive line there in Atlanta is pretty good.
I'm not saying it's not good. I'm just saying he's going to have split. He's not commanding 80% of the touches like Josh Jacobs is.
Yeah.
He's not commanding 70% of the touches like Jonathan Taylor is. Like, he's not going to get volume.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to draft a guy in the first round, in the first half of the first round, if they're not getting volume.
Well, speaking of volume, let's talk about the way this draft went here.
Speaking of volume.
This is not ASMR. Let's go with my 5th pick here. I started off with CeeDee Lamb, who dropped to pick 5, which I'd take that any single day. I did argue with the fact that I do have Jefferson. I like him a little bit more than Lamb, but that's mostly because I haven't had an opportunity to get Lamb unless you're in the top 2 picks or 3 in most of these drafts. I went back and got King Henry as my key back there. Deebo Samuel on the swing around. James Cook as my RB2. I went with my tight end Kincaid because I want one of those top guys. Really, after Kincaid, it's Kittle or Ingram. I'm still fading Kyle Pitts. Sorry for my recency bias. I took Kyler Murray because I want one of those rushing upside quarterbacks here, and he's the last one that really gives you that outside of Caleb Williams or Jaden Daniels, who are rookies. Then I went with Calvin Ridley, the presumed now wide receiver 1 to start the season for Tennessee Titans. Took 2 volume running backs back-to-back in Singletary and Bijan. Got some insurance with Cortland Sutton as a wide receiver 1 in Denver. Matt Stafford is my true insurance for Kyler Murray, who we know can get injured. And then I took a flyer on Mike Williams again. I know he's starting the season off on the pup, but that's because I'm going to put him on my IR, and I'm going to swing somebody in this lineup as well. And then I finished it off with Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah. What's a pick you wish you had back?
Let's see. I'm happy I got Singletary and Robinson, even though I missed on White, Mostert, and Moss, because I was thinking about trying to get one of those guys there. I'd probably say that the biggest one was, where'd it go on this swing back? I got Henry, I got Saquon, I got Deebo. Honestly, I was pretty happy with my draft the most. I wanted Dak instead of Murray, so I didn't want to take Dak though in the 5th round. I could have. I wanted Dak, but didn't get it. Happy with Murray. So honestly, all in all, I'm pretty happy with how it goes. I mean, McConkey and Williams was the only 2 that went between you and me that I was hoping one of them fell to me in that round, and they didn't, and I'm still happy with Singletary there.
Sure.
So I'm actually happy with this draft. It's not a very high upside draft, but I think it's a solid week to week. It's gonna win me weeks, and if I get a couple little home runs for some of these guys, it's gonna be big, especially if Kincaid finishes top 5 as a tight end for sure.
So I dropped out at the 8th spot. I went with the 0 running back strategy. Started out the draft by going with A.J. Brown. I just haven't had a chance to get him. I thought about going Garrett Wilson or Puka, but I just went with A.J. Brown just because of the huge blow-up games that he could have. Josh Allen in the 2nd round on the swing back, taking the first quarterback off the board. Then went with Nico Collins and Michael Pittman. I mean, my starting receiver core is just giant human beings. And then went and got James Conner as my first running back off the board. George Kittle fell right to me. I'm going to go and take him. He's kind of like the last of the tight ends, the top-end tight ends, and he's sitting right there in front of me. I didn't really value anyone else. If it's coming down to Swift or Mondre or Najee, I was perfectly happy getting Zamir White in the next round rather than going and getting one of those guys and not get Kittle. So get Zamir White, get Zach Moss, Keon Coleman, Jameson Williams, Rashid Shaheed, went a little run on wide receivers there with a lot of high upside, then finished up with Chuba Hubbard and Tyler Algier. I will say, just talking about the 0 running back strategy for a second, if you really are going in the first 4 or 5 rounds without getting a running back, you really need to make sure that you should overdraft on some guys that are volume. And you really need to get guys that don't have as much upside but have guaranteed work.
Well, let's do a quick talk on who those guys may be, because there are multiple of them. So let's talk about here. You got James Conner, Zamir White, Devin Singletary, Brian Robinson Jr.,
Ramondre. I think Ramondre is a really good option.
Stevenson is a great option. Najee Harris is still an option. Volume is still going to be there for him.
Najee's good.
I think Zeke is a sneaky one because he is going to be the RB1 guy. It's not a pretty pick. Grab your soap, lather up, and clean off that dirty pick but he's going to be the RB1 guy there.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't know how that running back room is going to shake out. I don't think Zeke can handle the workload.
It doesn't need to, but if he handles the touchdown,
I mean, that's what he can get a lot of the goal.
250 and he gets 8 touchdowns in a season, and he's your RB2.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of options there, but if you are going to go that first 4 or 5 rounds without going and touching a running back, again, make sure getting a guy like Trey Benson as your RB2 is going to put you at such a disadvantage on a week-to-week basis. Even Nick Chubb, because we don't know when he's going to be back. I mean, you got to hedge your bets on a lot of that stuff. You can go for Tony Pollard or Tajay Spears, but I would like them as like a running back 3. And again, you saw I go 3 running backs within 4 picks from rounds 5 until rounds 8.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really what you really should look to do. If there's a tight end that falls to you, or if you didn't go quarterback in the second round, like that's ideally what I would have rather done, to be honest with you. Like I didn't love my Josh Allen pick, but what I was hoping is for Davante Adams to fall down to me in the second. And when he wasn't there in the second, I don't value, like if I was going to go hold true to the 0 running back, I probably would have taken maybe Saquon, Derrick Henry, ETN right there, but I held true to doing like the 0 running back. And without drafting a running back, I didn't like Olave. I didn't like Drake London. Not in the first half of the second round. And I'd rather go and get Josh Allen and take him off the board. A guy that's can win me weeks single-handedly.
Yeah.
So I get him, and then again follow up with 2 other receivers who I like the value of. Again, getting Nico Collins, who falls down. Again, Nico Collins, if he wasn't there, Stephon Diggs went the pick after, I would have went Stephon Diggs. Like I was fine getting either one of those guys and a piece of that offense. And then getting Michael Pittman, who I absolutely love snagging right there. And there's a lot of value in later round wide receivers. And again, going back and you look at Keon Coleman, Javonte Williams, Rashid Shaheed, those 3 guys have so much upside in those offenses.
Jameson Williams.
Sorry, I said Javonte. Jameson Williams.
Well, Coleman could be the wide receiver 1. Jameson should have a breakout season. Rashid Shaheed is the deep threat there.
Lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And so, you have a lot of upside with those guys, and they're great bye-week replacements for any of my wide receivers that I drafted. And I still have like the steady eddies at the running back position.
Yeah.
So I'm not uncomfortable starting James Conner, Zamir. Like James Conner is going to be my every week guy, right? And Zamir White, Zach Moss, I might do matchup based. With Tyler Algier and Chuba Hubbard as great bye weeks for those guys.
Well, even Chuba Hubbard could be your running back too.
Right, that's what.
But here's the thing,
Jonathan Brooks is not going to play until minimally week 4 or 5.
And the same thing goes with Nick Chubb. So Ford and Chuba are 2 great picks, but they can't be your running back 2 pick. Can't be the second one off the board.
No.
And you can't hold to that, because the hard part is those guys have a shelf life. Because they drafted Brooks for a reason. Now, do we both, you and I, agree they shouldn't play Brooks this season? Yeah. But we're not Carolina Panthers, and we are not the GMs and head coaches making that decision.
Right.
But in terms of, same thing goes for Nick Chubb. I don't know if it makes sense for Nick Chubb to even try and rush back off anything, especially if they're losing some games. So Jerome Ford's going to be in there. But you better believe that these NFL teams want to get their money's worth and not just lose a year with this player, then have to pay them. So Brooks and Chubb are probably going to find time at the field at some point, which is going to eat into the volume load that these guys have early on. But they're great late picks that you will be able to start on a week-to-week basis based on matchup that are going to give you immediate impact.
Well, I think Chubb's in a different situation. They're both similar but different, because like that team is going to be good. They're going to have a top 3 defense in the league. The offense doesn't need to do too much.
You still got to win. They're in one of the hardest divisions too.
Like, they were winning games last year with Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
Believe me, I watched them. Yeah. It was ugly.
So like they're going to win games this year. Deshaun Watson's play is going to be better this year. It's not going to be worse than what the quarterback play they saw last year.
Yeah.
And Chubb, they can save and let him get healthy, fully healthy, and go on a playoff run with him.
And they don't need. But the thing is,
with Jonathan Brooks, they ain't making the playoffs.
No, but the thing is, either way, those guys, even if they come in and they bring Chubb in, and Chubb goes up to like a 40%, touch, for a couple games till they get towards the playoff run. Brooks comes in, they give him 40% of the touches to get, his feet wet in the NFL and stuff like that, and be ready for everything like that. That still eats into significant workload that the Ford and Chuba do need. So you can't hinge your bets on those two guys as your RB2s is pretty much what I'm saying.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't even trust them as I would get them as an RB3 or 4.
And be able to plug them in earlier in the season.
Right, exactly. Because they can win you games early. I mean, especially if you're going to go and draft Brooks, you should definitely grab Chuba Hubbard. If you're going to go and draft Chubb, go and get Jerome Ford. Like, go and hit, like, own that backfield.
The hard part for the Ford Chubb is their ADP is so close together. Like, you're pretty much...
Theirs are, but Chuba and Jonathan Brooks are not.
Yeah, because Brooks is just flying up the board. I think it's way too high. I think Brooks should be closer to Chuba, in my opinion.
Well, Chuba should be coming up.
Chuba should be up. Brooks should drop down a little bit, and they should be...
I'm not saying Chuba should be drafted in the 7th or 8th round, but...
A 10th round pick? Why not?
9th round pick?
9th round pick. So... Well, thanks for tuning in. That was another mock draft brought to you by the Standard Fantasy Football Podcast.
Prost.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that notification button because we got some more divisional breakdowns coming up for you here, as well as a consistent weekly mock draft leading up to the Mockathon, where we will do a mock draft every single day for you leading up to one of the biggest weekends in fantasy football draft. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys.